Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that there's a conversation like this? Like we're talking about this, like we're talking about the phenomenality of something happening. Uh, the the conversation that's just not had, the conversation that somehow is dismissed constantly, the conversation that could be top of mind, you would have said, the conversation. It's amazing that this is happening here. It's amazing that, yeah, that anything is coming out at all, because, you know, there isn't anything to say apart from venturing into a story. There isn't anything to say apart from the sound of hearing. There isn't anything to say apart from hearing. There's hearing happening. And sitting on a chair, drinking coffee in the sun, breathing, heart beating. And beyond that, we venture then into storyland. And the stories, where did they begin and end? But this particular story is the story of something appearing to happen. And in that this appearing to happen, there seems to be different versions of it, multiple different versions of it. Most of them come from me and my life and my story. And that can fill a book, fill a comic book, or it can fill an encyclopedia, depending on the life. But the commonality is me, the hero of the story, and me trying to get somewhere. And somehow, then there's another story about how this me can be the best hero. And so the me searches forever and ever and ever to try and find something. And so it looks everywhere, and all it sees is other me's who seem to know. And so the general conversation is not had then about, I've no explanation for this. Have you any explanation for saying I've no explanation? And so then that kind of childlikeness seems to disappear, that kind of total innocence, total cluelessness about total cluelessness. There's not even a questioning of the cluelessness. It's just cluelessness. And somehow then somewhere, and other people can tell better stories about this, but somehow there's a knowing of cluelessness. There's a knowing of the world, and every word becomes real and a thing to have, to find, to seek, you know, to see if it's useful. And everything is about uses then, trying to navigate through this life of words, of real things. And that seems to be the predominant movement then towards something. And we are lost in images of what that is. So we're lost in the image of wealth, in the image of being wise, in the image of being loved. We're definitely lost in the image of being wise and loved and all-knowing. That's an image of what that, there's an image then of what that is like. And in that image of wisdom, there's no uncomfortableness in that. There has to be no uncomfortableness. There's no pain. There's no worries. Everything is utterly calm and almost, you could say, once removed then. Once removed from the full onness of life. But that's the image is sought then. And like whether the image is a steak or a car or a partner or whatever that image is, it is a final resting place. And in that final resting place, I will have arrived and I will at last be at peace. And then in all those melange of stories, somehow another story pops up that says there is no one. And that can bash you over the head. It can make you feel a little bit ill. It can sound a little bit stupid, disappointing. It goes against every single possible reality. And yet it doesn't seem to go away for some, that to hear there is no one. So in the seeking then, the seeking to acquire for that which needs to acquire, to hear that there isn't anyone doing that, that can be confrontational. To hear that there's no one growing the grass and growing the leaves on the trees and doing the seeking, to hear that, it can just do something. It can just like put a bolt into the senses, or not, but it's something that which is seeking can't get to the bottom of, can't own, and it can pretend, it can imagine to know that there's no one. And for a while, there's a seeking then that seems to happen to know that there is no one, to know nothing, and to know what it's like to be a no self, to remain intact and yet experience this state, this imaginary idea, this other image of what no self is like. And so that's the next game, and it can play out how it plays out. Who knows how that seems to unfold. All the while, somehow, there's a little knocking saying that already there's no one. Already there's no one wondering about asking a question. Already there's no one looking to seek. Already there's no one that's going to but. And it's magnificently disappointing. It's absolutely dangerous, and yet already the case that no one can but, and yet butting, that no one will say, well, I'm definitely here doing this, that no one will say whatever is coming out of this, that it's just what's appearing to happen. And that's the mystery, the unfathomable, the uncatchable. And so, you know, it's called everything under the sun, this what's appearing to happen. It can be called unconditional love because it is unconditional, but it's deeply impersonal, and it's nothing like love because it includes hate. It includes everything. And so then in that image, when the image is gone, anxiety might happen. Who would stop it? Who would be there to not be affected? Who would be there to be affected? Anything and everything is possible. And the freedom is in that no longer an image of what is required, that there's just what is. And then that sounds like it's something other than what is. And all that, everything I've just said as a story, it's just sounds. All there is the hearing. All there is the sound. There's nobody doing the hearing. There isn't you and the hearing. There's just hearing. There's just this. There's just sitting on a chair. And so if there's anything burning to be asked, or not even burning, anything itching or anything that you feel like saying, then just say it. There's you can't do it right or wrong. You're not doing it. And so technically speaking, you can raise your hand or you can just go for it, Dave. Just unmute yourself and rock and roll.
Hi.
Hiya.
Coming in hot with some seeking energy, for sure. Yeah, there's this, there's a feeling that like hearing that it's hopeless for whatever this is that I think I am that's seeking. It's like there's this belief that hearing that it's hopeless and like believing that is somehow going to lead to something, to like the dropping or the seeing of the illusion or something, like trying to get something out of hopelessness, which is, it just sounds insane. But
yeah, no, I mean, of course, it's a place to hang your hat on. At least I'm hopeless, then I can be safe in hopelessness. Oh, it's hopeless. And then one eye is half open, hoping.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's hope that the hopelessness is going to go somewhere,
Yeah.
So it really feels like
It is,
you know,
it's
crap.
almost, it is when I'm really hopeless, and it is hopeless. It is utterly hopeless, but it's also not hopeful or hopeless. It's what it is. It's this, like, it's saying maybe it's hopeless. You know, maybe hopeless is the way. If I can be hopeless,
Yeah. And
you
even
can't you
that,
can't do you can't do that. Like, you're not doing that.
right.
That's, you know, there's not even one thing, not an inch that you're doing. So you could, like, read 1,000 books and travel for 1 billion miles, but you'd never get to wondering about hopelessness and whether hopelessness is finally going to sweep me away. It's always romantic, and there's music playing probably. So there should be.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't even hang your hat on hopeless. You're lost at sea. There's no anchor. There's no home. There isn't even hopeless.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like hope or hopelessness is something that I'm deciding, you know? It's like I'm not looking for hope. It's just there is some. And then there's also, you know, the hearing of hopelessness and the thinking about it, you know, it's like there's none of that feels like I want to be doing it, you know? No, no deciding to be hopeful or hopeless. I don't want, you know, I was like saying that I want to be hopeless, and yet there's hope in that. And it's like, well, I can't do anything about that either.
And you can't do anything about saying I can't do anything about that either.
Yeah.
It's like, it's this. It's like, it is as that. That's how it is then.
Yeah. Yeah. Confrontational for sure. Sucks to hear it. And then, you know, it's like right in the face of what I want to be happening, or, you know, just saying like that's what it is. It is the wanting. It's the speaking. It's everything. And there's just the expectation that it could be different or better, you know.
Yeah. It's what it's the imagination of what it's like, then lost in the imagination of what it's like, then that's what's happening then. You know, but it is lost in the imagination of it would be like that, then this wouldn't be the case. But if already there's no one doing that, then who can know that? Because that's what the movement is, to know this.
Yeah, and that's what I think you said is it's impossible for that loop of like knowing. That's what it's impossible for. Like it's impossible to know it, and yet that's like the only thing that feels real or has substance to it is like things that are known, you know, to like me.
It's just the loop.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Go first, Kirk.
All right, thanks, Frank. So my favorite video that I've seen of yours is that first one with Kenneth, where you're just that really early one. That was absolutely brilliant. But my second favorite one is when you're sitting on the bench with Andreas at that conference, one of the many nothing conferences or whatnot. I think you interviewed Tony when you were there, and you did a long one with Andreas. And several times during that interview, you said that when you thought about all this non-duality business, it just made you want to puke. You just felt terrible. You just, so what I'm wondering is, how do you explain how you feel now about it and remembering how you used to feel? I almost think that might be helpful for Dave to hear. Just how do you put that into words? What happened?
Nothing happened. you see, really, really, you see, nothing happened. You see, there never was somebody doing that, you know. There's never was somebody there seeking, but that is what I appear to say, and appear to just feel, you know, it felt like, I'm sure, bashing the head against the wall, all the while feeling like, it felt like bashing the head against the wall, all the while the recognition that there couldn't be anything, you know, like this, the communication did bang, you know, there was no following gurus or one to go after, like the communication, this, you know, when I read it all those years ago, it was like a bang and like a bell. But between that and like it's ordinary life. So then that was nobody appearing to seek and nobody talking. Now this is nobody talking and nobody seeking. You know, it's not like there's somebody left over then to recognize that and knows then what this is. It was always there, the inexplicableness, always there. The underlying was the inexplicableness, but somehow then there was being lost in the idea of, oh, they must know, even if they must definitely know, even if what's been said is that there's no one, and as a result, there's nothing to get. You know, even like there was still the banging of the head against the wall, going round and round and round, and all the while though that message that it was unconditional of that, well, that's what is, and like there was no way that you know, I wanted to see with my own eyes, sort of thing. That was the movement. I wanted to see the hands. I wanted absolute proof. You know what I mean? That's what I was looking for, and it was butting all day. And even when it was here, you know, I would keep saying, "But you know, there's no one." That's what was the, you know, but you know. And so then it was, whether it's intellectual or, was lost in the idea of knowing, then lost in that it could be known because all the words have been used. So then there was enchantment with liberation, loss of self. And then, you know, never wanting to hear, it's not never even wanting to hear, it can't be heard. You know, but there's no one that can hear this already, like it's as whatever is. So, yeah.
But another thing I really enjoyed with all your videos that I've seen was that you were on the hook. You were frustrated and you were angry, and you even talked about trying to not think about this horrible thing anymore, but you couldn't. It just kept pulling you back in. And Tim says the same thing. I was on a weekend with Tim a while ago, and you know, he says he even felt like he knew more about this than the speakers did. But he still was on the hook.
Yeah, it's funny, there was a time where I think actually a good few years ago, I set up a weekend, after a weekend with Tony Parsons. I set up a website called Hardcore Non-Duality. And that'd be the type of thing, you know, it would be, okay, I have something to say. And it was, you know, that lasted a few months, but it was definitely the feeling of, oh, something deeply dissatisfying about, you know, it was knowledge then, you know, to be able to rattle off and then saying it, it was just, there's something somehow after a period of time was something really dissatisfying about. And then there was something inescapable, the idea of wanting to unhear this, you know, that definitely appeared. It was really, really wanting to unhear this, wanting safe ground, wanting the anchor back, even if it was misery, wanting misery. At least then I could be miserable. I can be that. That's real then.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Dave's stuck in that situation now, though, because I don't think he can unhear this. It's kind of like you got to let the poison run its course.
Well, there is no Dave though already.
Now, the last thing I wanted to say was that when I was talking to Tim, he has, is it Derek or Darren that helps him with his podcast? Anyway, he's a musician and he played a little song thing, and I said that I thought you and Kenneth and Tim should form a band and talk about
I'd love that. I'm always trying to form a
silence.
band with Kenneth, but I don't know. I don't know. I think he's too good. He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't want me. Yeah. No, there's no chance.
Well, I'd fly over for the concerts for sure if that ever happened.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not really here, I wouldn't really be there either. I'd still fly over.
I need to learn a few songs. Jesus, a few chords.
Thanks. It's so great to talk to you. I really, really appreciate all your work. It's wonderful.
Cheers.
Very refreshing.
Thank you.
I'm just going to jump in because
Go
I
for
can't
it.
find the hand thing on
Go
my.
for it.
It's so nice to meet you. I heard about you from Kenneth yesterday morning. He mentioned your name and I was like, oh my goodness. Like a month ago, a friend of mine sent me this YouTube of Ariana talking about her process or whatever. And then it just was like, boom, like clearly seeing that all these years of meditation meant absolutely nothing. and then just, now just being drawn to listen to this. And can you talk a little bit, like I heard Tony Parsons say, that this awareness, which so many of these non-duality teachers talk about, is just, it arises with the individual.
Yeah, I mean, to me, every single tiny word, there's the feeling that they make everything real. So then there is a thing called awareness, and so then they can talk about that, or consciousness, or whatever it is, that the word then becomes a thing. And it's always something real, though. And it's said with conviction.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
It's, there's that kind of sensing that when the conversation is happening, you see, this is freedom. That, the meditation doesn't mean anything, but nothing means anything. Nothing has to mean anything. It's all this laden down, heavy meaning. It has to have meaning. There is no meaning in anything.
Yeah.
And yet meaning then can appear to be attributed. So then awareness and consciousness have nothing to say about that. It's just, you have to get really good at telling the great story there. And that I'm not good at that. I'm not good at, I just can't say a word about it. There's 50 million books on consciousness. Yeah.
Okay.
So it must be real then,
Yeah, well, that was another, just when I heard Tony say that, I was like, whoa. Yeah, so, okay. Let me see if there's anything else. Well, I was just watching your 0 to 1 movie. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll pop back on if anything else.
Yeah, it's amazing that I couldn't wait to have that edited and gone, just gone. I did somehow went around Europe and then sitting editing it. I thought, I can't tell anybody I know about this. I can't tell. There's no way my other half's going to look at it. Nobody. Kenneth might look at it. Andreas and Jim and Tony might. At a push, Tony might. And that'll be it. It's,
And now it's seemingly taking off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Frank.
Hiya.
Could you say a bit about the functionality in the parent story? Like when there's no one, is there like the body needs to have food and all that kind of stuff?
There's already no one there asking that.
But there's just no direction, like there's no direction.
But there's nobody asking that question now about the functionality. There's maybe a curiosity then in an imagination of I know someone then, a picture of what I know someone would be like, and would there be hunger, and how would he do getting the food, and what would it be like? And that's imaginations of, it's just exactly how it is there. Hunger, food, bathroom, thirst. Exactly. So exactly what's happening. Exactly. You know, it'd be like saying, how do you do the sound of that? How did you get to that question there? That the sounds came out of that mouth. How did you do it? You didn't do it. So exactly what we're talking about is the phenomenality of this.
Thank you.
I got another one for you.
Go for it, yeah.
Is there anything that you would have wanted to hear, or like if you were to like talk to yourself a few years ago, that I don't know, would have helped, or that would have made any sense? I know you say you can't, no one can hear it, but
Oh no, there's already no one. It's already no one, Frank. It's just this. There's no Frank. There's no Dave. There's nobody in the body. There's nobody asking the question. And there's nobody doing the but there is. It's total. Anything else would be would have been food to feed me, the seeker, and I would have just kept on. Although I could see through it then also, you know, anytime there was a hint of I can show you the way, there's just a sensing of so there's already no one. It's just and luckily that was there, you know. But yeah, you could say also then that seeing loads of people apparently talk about this gives the impression then that, oh, there's a group of people who appear to have got this. It's more that they haven't got anything. That's, you know, and especially with all the conferences and things like that, I'm glad in a way that all of that just would have been more, oh God, all these, they must know then. Somebody must know. And then even if they're saying there's, you know, but that's just, you know, that's just a story there about imagining, you know, in a way, you see, this is already known, like in a kind of a non-intellectual way, which is really annoying thing to hear, that it's more than the ideas are chased that over there must know, you know. So then there must be an answer coming out of this trapdoor. The answer, what's been said here is, look, it's just sitting on a chair, total cluelessness, you know. It's not even, and it's not my cluelessness, you know. It's not like I can go, you know, unknowing or non-duality or liberation. It's all crap. It's all rubbish. Like, we're talking about total, wonderful, horrible, this inexplicableness that includes everything, every tiny inch.
I'll just keep going if nobody else is jumping in. You know, I hear what you're saying. Like, I've been through, you know, a roster of people talking about, you know, do this practice, or you can look and like just look to see that there's no self. But it's, you know, this message is different because it's saying that like there's not even someone that could look. So there really is like, there's just no instruction or direction or advice for anything. It's just over and over again, you know, the same thing, which is probably the frustrating part, is that I keep coming back to these videos and like, and really just recently finding this, you know, uncompromising message the most frustrating of all of them, because it's really just the same thing over and over again, but I can't get away from it, you know, because there's nothing being offered, but somehow I'm still coming back thinking there's something, like you said, there's like this imagination that there's got to be a knowing over there and something is going to sink in, you know. But I know what you're saying. I can't listen to anybody else now that's offering anything like advice or looking or questioning anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like that, that all of a sudden the freedom is sensed because it's just so totally not talking to anybody. It's so not prescriptive, because there'd have to be somebody who's found something to be able to explain to somebody else how they can find. So then there's somebody who knows what the fuck, knows what this knows. Right. Okay. So the word knows, like even that, like it's just, it's all, it's always constrained in some way, shape or form. And that constraint can be felt. You're not quite doing it right now. Just, you know, no, keep going the way you're going and you'll get there. That's how it is, isn't it? Like, it's just, you're nearly, and I'll know then. Imagine like if this was something that some authority could say, okay, I think you're nearly there now. So nearly there. To hear this requires no belief, no knowledge, no anything, you know, to sit on a chair for this. So it can be the case. It can also be an amazing adventure to go and do all these things, these meditations. And it's, you know, it's kind of like what you're describing about hopelessness in a way. It's kind of like almost one half an eye open going, am I doing it? Am I there? you know, and could be deep in, have I arrived? Arrived. So then there'd be a place then. This is placeless. This is homeless. Home is homeless. You know, there's no explanation for this. It doesn't need to be explained. So then anything is said then. And then you see there is lostness in images of then the final is that there's nothing to get. What's this nothing to get? And it's not even that there's nothing to get. It's that there is no one. But then nothing, you know, something about the word nothing, it kind of like, what do you mean nothing? And then the head had been banged against the wall. What do you mean nothing? Because then nothing is objectified, you see. Nothing is a thing called nothing. So it's not even nothing then. And you can't do the reaction to this either. It's not like you can go, God, you know, when finally there's no self. I'll laugh out loud because I've heard about the laughing. There are roars of laughter. That's what I'll do. But you don't do anything. You're not doing anything. You won't get this, but you're not seeking it. So there's just what is.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a similar thing here that Dave was saying, like, after hearing this message, now listening to other teachers, I just hear how it like feeds the person. Oh my God. It just, I didn't hear that before. And it's just, wow. And it's funny, I have to say, I'm actually on a retreat that I signed up for months ago. And I can't even, like, I'll sit and listen for a little bit. They'll come back up to my room. I was like,
wow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So you're cheating on your retreat.
It's like, what? I'd never heard this before. It's freaking incredible. Like, oh yeah. And, you know, just remembering the times that I used to meditate and think, like, I'm about to break through. And this is it. And then the bell would ring and like, no shit. It's gone now.
It's always nearly. It's lovely.
I've got to go back and do. Yeah. Oh, thanks.
I'll just say that it's very similar with this now, though, because people often start to make this to be the next important thing, and this is now important, and this is the breakthrough that I have to break through, and especially if you're maybe hearing this sort of more recently, you know, because there's absolutely nothing going on, and this is not important, and you know, why we're sitting here or talking is an absolute mystery to us. We haven't a clue, and you know, I would also just like to put in that there's absolutely no difference between despair and joy. They're one and the same, really. You know, it's just meanings maybe that people put on them that make them pleasurable or suffering or whatever. You know, this is it's like it's beyond explanation or words to ever try and figure out what's happening, I think, and that can be so completely overwhelming at times, and it's so joyful at other times, and so horrifyingly scary at other times, and everything, and completely and utterly boring. It's everything, it's just everything. So, this is not like this is not like any more important than going on a meditation retreat. You know, they're exactly the same in terms of importance or no importance, because you couldn't not go on a retreat, or you couldn't not be at the Zoom. It's just got nothing to do with you. I'm suggesting.
There's just what is.
When you or other people say that it's, purely energetic, what could that possibly mean?
Well, everything is energy, or everything is carrot cake. It's a word for this. So in a way, it's kind of what Siobhan was saying about there's no difference between joy and misery. It's just joy and misery appearing, and it's energy, or whatever. Energy doesn't make it then a thing called energy, because the mind has images of battery operated energy or electrical energy or whatever image then that makes it a thing called energy. But in a way, energy can be a great word too, because of the movements of the resonance. Maybe it's like that. It can be like that. It's the inexplicableness, the non-wordiness of it, the kind of sensing, without a special sensing, just a sensing that there's a sort of a anarchic freedom to this, that nothing's on offer, nothing. Not a thing called nothing, like, really nothing? Nothing. And it's a discussion or a sharing then about this, and that can be, it is slightly different than right, lads, I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation and I'm going to bring you through a list of 10 things that can get you to wherever they seem to get people. I don't know if they get people. They definitely, it's like, yeah, you get lost in, it's always lost in the next. Let me show you. Now, before I show you, I'd like to talk to you about this, and then I'll show you. Or whatever, but it's always the next. Subtly, it's always a very subtle. And then sometimes it's really blatant,
there's some interesting scientific stuff that's happening. There's a fellow named Sam Harris, which maybe some of you have heard of, and his wife is Annika Harris, and she is a science writer. She kind of re-explains scientific discoveries so normal people can kind of understand them. And there's two recent things that have happened. One is a lot of research, to show that when you make a conscious decision, the brain has already really done all the work, and it kind of hands that separate self that you think you are a little slip of paper that says, make this decision. So that whole concept of free will and that the separate self is somehow separate from the universe and making its own decisions and being free and all that. So the scientific research is showing pretty clearly that that is an illusion, that separate self is late to the party's already happened. The second thing is that there is a a whole part of the brain that they've identified as they call it the default mode network. And the default mode network is kind of, half of it is like automatic pilot. So when you drive, you don't have to think about how you drive. You know how to do that. Then your mind can go on thinking about other things. The second half of the default mode network is what we commonly call the ego, or the separate self, that then talks to you incessantly when there's not much going on. And unfortunately, that's the part that has the inner critic, the part that stores old messages about how you're not good enough and how you need to keep moving and you need to find something and get something and be something different than what is now. And part of the reason they're having really great success, especially for people with depression and PTSD, is that some of these new treatments are helping to quiet that default mode network. And when you quiet that network, and meditation is one thing that's been shown to help with that too, but basically it allows you to directly experience the world as it is, instead of constantly being bombarded with all this mental chatter. So I thought both those findings were kind of interesting, that science is kind of confirming what's being said here about the separate self not being real, life being in the moment and not this constant forecasting of future better experiences and memory. The other thing about the default mode network is that it's totally based on memory. Everything involved there comes up from memory. So I was really excited, being fairly new to this whole non-duality thing, to see that maybe there's actually some movement in other areas that would start to make more sense than the crap that we've been fed for so long about just making the separate self better. I don't know, whatever.
don't really know where this is coming from, but it's just jumped into my mind that the human being is just so utterly fascinated with itself. You know, that it writes papers and spends millions on scientific projects and stuff like that. And sorry, this just jumped into my head. But you know, I'm looking out at a field, and I can imagine there's foxes and some wildlife down there, and they're just getting on with this. They're just, do you know what I mean? They're just, I guess, functioning, waking, eating, sleeping, you know, being this. We're so utterly fascinated with ourselves. It's fascinating, isn't it? Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it seems really serious that we take, have to take ourselves very seriously.
But that's how it is then, if there isn't, that's the kind of phenomenality, that there isn't anybody doing all that. It's lost as words then, we are the word makers, the story makers. So the moment the mouth opens, then the story begins, no matter what's been said. And then when there's someone, there's the sense, oh God, they must know then what this is. And then the whole thing just begins again, reborn.
Yeah.
And so the fox doesn't even know what fox is,
Really.
But the human being then is just being human being, apparently, lost as words, where the human being is then real. This is the world, this is life, and the human being is doing its thing. So then that makes all this as if outwardly or otherly observed. It's once removed, then describing itself, almost. That's what it appears like. But it's just more telling stories, isn't it? Everything is that, really. Utterly obsessed. The me is utterly obsessed about me.
Itself. What was that line you said one time, Frank? Oh God, it was basically dying and reviving all in the same sort of moment or second.
Well, this is kind of death and rebirth. This is death and rebirth constantly. Yeah.
Even though there's no constant, there's nothing. It's not a constantly.
No. It's a moment it's like the moment the mouth opens, then it's like as if something is being said then and described to make this then, even calling, saying it or this is it, then though this is a thing, this is an it, so that it can be observed. It's almost then comes like an aberration to appear to be describing this, but the wonder in a way is that there is a describing happening. So the miracle is saying the miracle, that's the miracle. And not miracle in a kind of a water into wine. It's the miraculousness of anything, of saying, of anything at all.
It's beautiful. The fact that Kirk was fascinated by those scientific news, and the fact that I felt compelled to point out that the animals are far ahead of us as far as I'm concerned, and neither matter, and both are stunningly beautiful reactions. So meaningless and pointless. I mean, it's
See, meaningless and pointless can be heard then as grey and dull, but in essence, it's the freedom that meaning and pointlessness nothing is attributed to anything, so it doesn't have to have meaning, and just be exactly what it appears to be, including somehow meaning then being attributed. Then that can be how it is. Then this is so meaningful or whatever. Then that's okay, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. What saying that the beauty of the meaningless. I think that's the freedom, is when you can appreciate that side of it as well. And even when Dave was talking about the hopelessness, the hopelessness has a beauty to itself too, and the sadness of the nothing, or whatever you want to call it. There is a sort of a,
or it's just hopeless. It's just that then, or it's just that, just what it appears to be then. What appears to be then is the description of hopelessness then.
yeah, true.
It doesn't need to be good or bad, just what it is.
Right.
It doesn't need to be beautiful or unbelievable or amazing.
You literally can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. I mean, beautiful is obviously a very jaded word, but it's just there's no way to. It's like saying silence. It really is.
It can be absolute torment and absolute torture. It can be whatever, But yeah. Saeed just said here, there's no possibility that a step could be taken towards seeking or experience. Yeah, you can't get to your own attempt to get to this. It's just kind of, that's the trying to catching.
Yeah, I was saying the parent seeker kind of that was used to try to like think that this is his experience or seeking. But for you, when it's like seen through, there's no possibility that you can even take a step towards seeking, or there's no possibility that that can happen.
Yeah, it's just how it is, just what's happening. So seeking appearing to happen, seeking for other than this, or seeking for a no self, or seeking for nothing, then that's what's being described as the reality. That's what's being described as the reality. That's not, and there's nothing saying that that's not true. It's just saying that there's nobody doing that. It's kind of strikingly different in a way. There's no attempt to try and change that or make that any other way, but it's also just that, sense that there's just no one doing that. So it's kind of strikingly subtle, but also just, it's not really saying anything, but it's also can be sensed.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything, but things appear to be done. Be done.
For yourself, like the seeking will never, even if you try to maybe contemplate on something or whatever, but it can never ever be the seeking that it was, that suppose that there's another step. It can never have the expression that it has another step. It's just what's happening.
Yeah, when that which feels, when the loop of, when that which feels it can gain is no longer happening, then there's just how things are. No better, no worse, no anything, nothing. Just exactly what is. Just somehow then seeking for, or that seeking. I'm near. Is not happening.
Yeah, that's so.
And I think is the gaining. Then there's no one that can gain. No one left to gain. No one that Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can't be lost or found. It's never lost or found. Just how it is. So, intellectually, it can be heard that there's nobody doing the breathing, growing the hair or not, the nails, but the intellectual then will go, I'm still doing the thinking, but it's the but, the but is just what is then. That's just what is then. It's not like you can do that. That's the amazing thing. And it can, and frustrating, whatever words are being used, then that's the felt reality then for this. Then that's, you know, I'm a seeker, and whatever story about that, I'm still a seeker. Well, okay, then that's what's being described. Then it's kind of, is it safe? It's kind of safe then, because that is still what I am. Then I am that, you know, I am the seeker. I'm kind of safe, but this is just edgy, but utterly ordinary and full to the brim with whatever is, you know, full to the brim with heartache and full to the brim with laughter, joy, or whatever. Everything.
Yeah.
It's just nobody's doing it. And it's not a known thing, you know, it's just, you know, somehow then there's a description happening or a conversation appearing to happen. And yet all the while it's just the, ooh, you know, it's just this, but what can be said about this then? It's just sitting on a chair, just drinking what's left of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is unreal, so it can't be another reality that this can claim, or
See, real and unreal,
it's
because it's
already unreal.
yeah, real and unreal, you know, yeah.
Yeah, real or real.
Yeah, which was a killer, you know, that's a killer as well, because, you know, make it one thing or the other, don't make it both. That used to drive me insane, apparently.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not both, but it's not either real or unreal. So then real doesn't become a thing and unreal doesn't have to become a thing. They're just words. And really what's being said is what we've been talking about is just the miracle of this. And scratch miracle, then the shittiness of this, the whatever is being described about this is this appearing. And it's no one's. It's not an it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could get life, then it could be had and held and contained and bound by words. If I could understand this, then it becomes stale rapidly. If it was a thing, good luck with that.
So it's being said that there is no one, and then I guess the frustrating or maybe the confusing thing is that there's also like the sense of myself, but I guess what you're saying is that sense is happening for no one.
No one's doing it. No one's asking that question there. There's no one in there. No separate entity in there doing that. Just a body and a mouth and sounds. That's all that there's here as well.
And just the imagining of being separate or a sense of that as well.
Whatever then is happening, yeah, whatever is being described as real, if that's what's being described then about this, so that that I am here then and this is a meeting about whatever non-duality, then that's what's being described then. So then this is empty, almost full to the brim with that, so then that's what is then that description, or what appears to be described, to be being described.
Man. Jesus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
See you later, alligators.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, man.
Take it easy.